Hey, welcome to Dr. Lisa's Sulsenti podcast. I am Dr. Lisa, and today we are going to continue our conversation about hormones. And if you missed the podcast before this, go back because I talk about 3 amazing tips, and I will touch upon them today, but I don't want to get into them as deep as that podcast did about how to balance your hormones. And they're actually needed in this process because they're really cleaning up your diet and looking at your lifestyle and really looking at sources of hormone disruptors and really just starting to remove chemicals and things that could be the cause or really the root reason of why your hormones are off. So that's definitely really a big thing. But today I wanted to roll into actually infertility because there's some other things to look at with infertility. So I have women come to me, young girls come to me, and I have all different cases that come to me. There could be the girl that's 27, 20, 29 years old that is like just married and the age doesn't really matter. I'm just using some example of patients in my head. But, they might just be newlyweds and they come to me and they're like, hey, we just want to get healthier before we start having a family. And I'm always in awe of these young couples because I'm like, wow, I don't think I did that. I don't think I was worrying about or even thinking about how healthy I was before getting pregnant. So, you can have a healthy pregnancy and a healthier baby and just do all that you can to get your body ready and healthy. So I have that, where they're ready, they're preparing for fertility. I have the ones that have been trying and not getting pregnant and do not want to do the medical route just yet. So they come and say, well, what do you think is going on? What are the changes? What am I missing that I could do to get my body to heal itself and get my body to be, fertile and pregnant? And then I have the women that have tried the infertility and no success medically, and they'll come to me, just devastated, and they're just like, "Is there something I can do? What's going on?" So I have all different type of cases that have come in, and I'm happy to say that just about all of them have done well. I think in this just last 2 years, I've had 5 babies, 5 patients, but in this last year, they've all had their babies. So I got to meet 5 babies that are just so amazing. And I always say, if this is one of you guys, I just love that you're in my practice. You just bring so much joy to me and to what I do. So infertility definitely starts with, I'm going to talk about, let me see here, 3 or 4 aspects of what you could do. The first one is MTHFR. I think that seems to be one of the biggest things. MTHFR, I do have a podcast somewhere in some of my seasons. I'm thinking up the top of my head, and I don't want to lose my space here in the podcast and me talking into the microphone. But there is, I have an MTHFR series, so go through my podcast. I just don't know which season, and I think it's last season. This is season 4. I'm pretty sure it's in season 3. Don't quote me on that, but go back and listen to all about MTHFR. I'm going to touch upon it here, but I can't go as in depth. MTHFR is a genetic mutation, and you either have it or you don't. And your husband or your partner could have it too. So that's a thing. And let's just talk about the woman sitting in front of me that wants to get pregnant. If she has an MTHFR genetic mutation, she has an increased risk for infertility. Period. That's just the way it is. So doesn't mean you're not going to get pregnant. Doesn't mean you can't get pregnant. It just means you have a risk for infertility. MTHFR is a genetic mutation. If the woman sitting in front of me, if she has it, you're getting the mutation from your mom or your dad or both. So I'll go into this with you when we do the testing or you bring your results to me. But basically, you could have up to 4 variations of this mutation, and you can have 1 out of the 4, 2 out of the 4, 3 out of the 4, so forth. The more mutations you have, the more the risk. Now, why is this? The whole thing is when you get pregnant, or you're doing prenatals, they put you on folic, like icky, think ick, Folic. They put you on folic acid. And rightfully so, it's to prevent like neural tube defects and, defects and things like that. Helps with brain development and so forth. So the problem here is twofold. One, folic, the icky, Folic, is synthetic. And if you've listened to my podcast, I'm not a big proponent of fake stuff. So It's synthetic. It's made in a lab. All right. There is a natural folate, Folate. Ate, think you ate it, like you ate spinach. There's natural folate. It's basically in the family of the B vitamins. And it's in the green leafy vegetables. It's in a lot of the beans, the legumes, things like that. And it's needed in the body. It's very, very important. But the natural form that you find, let's say in spinach or green leafy beans, is methylated, meaning that it's in its natural form. It's called L-methylfolate. And it's folate, Folate. It's not synthetic. It's in the greens. God made it that way. It's there. So if you eat, let's say, oranges, you're going to get vitamin C in its natural form, which means when you eat it, it's just going to be assimilated into the body because it's in the natural form. When we eat synthetic things, they're not in their natural form, typically, so they have to be assimilated. They have to be methylated. They had to be converted into a natural thing. And in this case, folic, the icky thing that you're getting synthetically because you're taking synthetic vitamins, is got to be converted to that natural form. And we use this process is called methylation. This process is sometimes impaired with people with MTHFR. So you see where I'm getting here. If you have MTHFR and you cannot convert the folic acid to the natural folate, your body is going to not have folate. It's going to be deficient. So that's one problem, is you can actually become deficient in folate. You also can become toxic in folic, the icky stuff, because you're not converting it. And this is where infertility comes. When there's too much folic acid in the body, the side effect of it is infertility. And sometimes it's this MTHFR genetic mutation that's not doing the conversion. So the first thing I do with women is we look at their diet and their life and we say, where does folic, the icky stuff, hang out? So if they're on a vitamin or they're on a prenatal or they're at a fertility doctor, and I'll work with the fertility doctor, and they're giving them folic acid at high dosages 3 times a day, I say, okay, we need to get off that. I don't take them off it. I just say this is what needs to be done. You need to go back to your doctor and you have to ask for L-methylfolate. We need to give you the natural form. Even though it's in a synthetic pill, it's still going to be assimilated when it gets into the body. You don't have to worry about the MTHFR. So they'll go back to their doctor and they'll say, this is what the functional medicine practitioner is suggesting. What do you think? And if they won't convert, get a different doctor, just period. Because if you're coming to me and you're not getting pregnant with him or her, go somewhere else. We also have to look at your foods, because folic acid is when they add food, when they fortify food, when the products, let's go to products because I don't like calling them food. When you're in the store and you're looking at products, what they do with products, company products that they call food that is not food. So if you're looking at the cereal aisle, for example, they fortify the cereal product, Kellogg's, and they'll add folic in it. So there's some synthetic folic acid in a lot of the breads and the cereals and the fake carbs, the stuff you should avoid. So we clean that up. We look where folic exists and we just avoid it. So what we do for infertility is avoid folic, the icky stuff. We put in the fresh stuff. We put in the real stuff. So I'll increase the foods that have the natural folate, like the green leafy vegetables and the beans and legumes and things like that. And we're going to avoid the folic, the icky stuff. And then we're going to supplement them with, if they're doing a prenatal or if they're doing fertility with a doctor, we're going to ask to switch that to the natural folate. So that is really big there. That's just a big change. And also what you have to look at with this MTHFR story with fertility is if you have the MTHFR and you're not converting the folic to the folate, you also have to look at B12 and B6 because they may not be being made. So that could be a problem. And you also want to look at glutathione, which is super important for detoxing, which is going to be it's going to be one of my next steps. And you also have to look at homocysteine, which if that starts rising can be an inflammatory thing. So those are some components with someone that comes to me for infertility in this season that I definitely look at. The next thing I look at is the gut, because the gut is super, super important. If your gut is inflamed, if you have a leaky gut, the inflammation within the gut is most likely permeating out of the gut. So what happens is, think of your gut as 20 something feet long. It's a huge surface area inside. And even though the large intestine isn't the same size as the small intestine, you just have this huge surface area in there where things are being broken down, food are being broken down. And there's an area too where things are going to get absorbed into the body. So if you were to eat healthy food and your body's like breaking it down, let's say an apple, the body's job, the gut wall, the gut's function is to say, hey, here's an apple. I'm going to absorb the good stuff, the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants and the things we need. And I'm going to get rid of the stuff we don't need. So there could be fiber that I can't break down. There could be seeds in here I can't break down. And so its job is to absorb the good stuff, get rid of the not so good stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff we don't need. So when that's not working properly, what happens is the gut just does the opposite. It'll stop absorbing the good stuff. So a lot of times we see with infertility, we'll see vitamin deficiencies, we'll see mineral deficiencies, we'll see amino acid deficiencies because the gut wall isn't absorbing things. The woman in front of me could, or the patient in front of me could be eating super healthy. But if the gut wall is inflamed, it's not working properly, it won't be having very good absorption. So that's another thing to consider. You could give this person all the folate you want or all the B vitamins and prenatals you want. They could eat all the healthy food they want. They might not be absorbing these nutrients that, again, you would need for your baby as well. So this is where this is really important. And if you listen to the podcast before this one, I talked about the fertile years where you're kind of preparing for pregnancy and you're kind of thinking about, is my period right? Or do I have symptoms? Or, we talked about, just not feeling well in the fertile years. And these are some of the things you want to consider, right, before you get pregnant. Were you really healthy before you went down this route? Because if you're not truly healthy, and I have it all the times, I have the moms tell me, oh, she's really healthy. She works out, she eats healthy. I would question that. If she has a leaky gut, she's not. If I have a leaky gut, I'm not. If you have a leaky gut, you're not as healthy as you think you are. So the leaky gut part also that's really important is if the gut wall is inflamed, that inflammation can leave the gut and get into the bloodstream and it can go anywhere. So it can create havoc in the hormonal system. It can actually affect estrogen and progesterone. It can affect the ovaries' ability to work, the uterus' ability to work. It can affect the actual act of getting pregnant. So let's say when you get pregnant, there's so much that needs to go on. So let's move over to that part, which the gut controls or influences. When you're looking at getting pregnant, you have the 30-day cycle. And so what's going to happen, you get your period and then, okay, you have 2 weeks before you're going to give off another egg. And what is supposed to happen in those 2 weeks is estrogen is supposed to slowly go up. It's going to peak. It's going to spike at a certain point. You might not feel well sometimes or not, or sometimes but it's going to peak. And it's going to tell the body at the peak, hey, give off an egg. And that's going to peak also 2 other hormones, luteinizing and follicle stimulating hormone. And it's telling the ovaries, give the follicle up, give the egg out, spit it out. And then that happens, if that happens. Now, of course, there could be a physical problem where there's no eggs or the eggs walls aren't good, or those are different conditions. But if we're talking about everything's good and the eggs being released, now estrogen is going to slowly come down and progesterone is going to slowly climb up. And what's supposed to happen here is the uterus will start thickening. So it's hoping that the egg gets fertilized. And again, we need good sperm. So men have to be healthy too. And if it got fertilized, the egg's going to burrow into the wall and it's going to start dividing. And it's going to be 2 cells to 4 cells, to 16 cells to 32 cells. And it's going to do its meiosis and mitosis and all that stuff. And then we're going to get a fetus. And it's going to be beautiful. But progesterone has to stay high, and some of these hormones have to kick in for pregnancy, and all that stuff has to stay at a certain level, because if you don't have that high progesterone, you might miscarry, right? If it's a toxic environment, it might miscarry. If the body is attacking itself, is attacking its gut, again, it might attack this. So this inflammatory process actually can interfere with this process of actually, getting pregnant. So there's the fertile years, the infertility situations, and what's going on. I am a nutritionist, functional medicine doctor, chiropractor. So we definitely do adjusting. So we make sure that the spinal cord is communicating, and the nerves and the messages between the brain and the organs that are, for fertility, they're all working properly. But I also am a functional, so I definitely get into the gut and make sure the gut is functioning properly. And the question would be, does the patient have a leaky gut? If so, what are some of the causes of the leaky gut? And then I want to fix those. So that's my job, is to make sure that whatever's causing the leaky gut and the inflammation that could possibly be interfering with the process, I got to fix that. And the last part of this story is going back to the podcast before this, where you want to look at your fishbowl. So you want to look at you in the fishbowl. The fishbowl is your environment, and you're in it. And how toxic is your fishbowl? And so how toxic is your toxic load in your body? Our bodies all deal with toxins every day. It's not a taboo. The way sometimes this approach is like detox, 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 get that stuff out, get that stuff out. It's not how I view it. And I'm not saying mine's right and someone else is wrong. I'm just saying it's a different view. That's it. So the way I view it is, our body is, in America especially, we're living in a toxic environment. There's lots of things going on, and you want your body to be able to filter it, deal with it, eliminate the stuff it doesn't need. That's really what's key. The word detox is so overused. It's really about filtering, eliminating. And then you want your body to actually absorb the things it does need. So you have to look at it like that, because estrogen is something your body needs, but if you have too much of it, it should be eliminating and filtering it out. So there's things that you need. Cholesterol is something you need. You shouldn't be lowering cholesterol, but if it's super high, if it's like in the 300s, you want to ask why. Because if you have a bacteria, or you have a bacteria infection or leaky gut, and you have bacteria leaking out of your gut into your bloodstream, of course cholesterol is going to go and try to clean it up. Of course your cholesterol is going to be high. You want cholesterol to go out there and clean up the bacteria that's in your bloodstream. So, you don't just jump and go, oh my gosh, let's just shut all this stuff off. You want to look at it like, wait a minute, why is this high? Why is her estrogen high? So if I was testing you and you had estrogen dominance, I'm going to worry about breast cancer and all those other things. But if you're telling me you can't get pregnant, I'm like, okay, well, why isn't the estrogen coming down? So you want to look at why the gut and the liver are not eliminating this as it should. Or if your estrogen's low, why is it not absorbing it? Correct? Heavy metals is something to think about. Like, you're gonna take metals in. It's in our food, it's in our water, it's in our soil, right? But you want to make sure that they're at healthy levels and you're eliminating those. So that's something. If you're looking in the gut, you want to make sure parasites are, kind of hidden. Like, right, we live harmoniously with yeast and sometimes bacteria and parasites, but again, they shouldn't be in a pathogenic state. They shouldn't be at a level where they're out of control. So we do that testing and we look for pathogens in the gut, and we look for parasites and bacteria and yeast levels, and we look for overgrowths and undergrowths of good bacteria of your microbiome. We look at streptococcus and staphylococcus and H. pylori, and we look at all this stuff that, biofilms and these things that could be hindering the body. So just think about that. That's my job, right? But you also want to look at, like, what I talked about in the podcast before this is, what are you drinking? And please go back, because I don't want to spend you're going to be like, I heard that one. You don't need to get back into it. So I'm going to summarize it. And if you didn't, go back to it. Like, literally when you're done with this, hit the podcast before this. Think about what you're drinking. And I'm going to touch lightly upon it. Starbucks and frappuccinos and coffees and syrups and high fructose corn syrups and sugars and dyes and fake flavorings and all that stuff. The whole aisle of the drinks, all the plastic drinks. And I didn't mention this before in the other podcast, plastic. I forgot to bring up plastic. So there's the xenoestrogens that are super, super important. There's phthalates, there's plastics, there's all these things that are hormone disruptors, and they're really, really big in the plastics. So if you're doing water bottles that are plastic, I see moms, I see you guys buying these big, big water bottles and these big, stupid sports drink bottles. That's plastic that leaches right into the drink that they're drinking. And the drink, might have sugar in it. It might have artificial flavoring and artificial coloring, which is a whole nother story because that's not healthy. But just the plastics alone, if you're heating up in steamer bags, if you're heating up in takeout plastic things, all of that I didn't mention in the last one, but that's something that's so important here with infertility and just hormone disruptors in general. So that's definitely something you want to clean up. What you're drinking, go back in what you're eating. Stop eating products, eat food, real foods. What you're putting on your skin. That was a really big thing. I went through that in the podcast before this. And fragrances and what's in your house and the smelling of things and the chemicals you're using. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. But you could really, to wrap this up, with infertility, MTHFR is your number one step. And then working on your gut is the second step. And the third step is just take one thing in your home and start replacing it. So you can listen to the podcast before that on what things to look at. And then in your diet, clean up one thing. So if you're like, all right, you know what, my drinks, I really should just be drinking filtered water. I'm going to get a filter for my water, and I'm going to use a stainless steel or a glass, to go thing. So Hydro Flask is a company I love. Life Factory is a company I love. Yeti's a good company. I don't like the Stanley ones because there's just been things about lead being in there, but it's controversial, so I just stay away from it because I don't know what to believe. So I go to Hydro Flask, absolutely love that company, and Yeti and Life Factory. And I have a article on my blog. If you go to it and you search the blog articles, it's Water Bottle Dilemma. There are sports drinks. And I'm trying to think, there's another one, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I go over all this stuff, like which I give you the links to the actual things I like. Camelback is actually a pretty good brand if you need plastic, because you want to make sure if you do use plastic, it's a certain number and it doesn't leach. Believe it or not, those water cooler things at work, they leach. So it's crazy. You'd be surprised at how much of things that you're ingesting and putting on your skin and breathing in that disrupt hormones and could be keeping you from being fertile. All right, so that wraps it up. There's a lot there. And of course, there's always a lot more. But if you ever have any questions, reach out to me. I am here. And we do have hormone testing, leaky gut testing. And of course, I get into the causes. And I have all that stuff. So I am here for you if you need me. But this is a really great place to start these two podcasts in helping balance out hormones. Okay, thanks.